In the weeks that followed, Earth began to heal. The scars of the battle with the Devourer were still fresh, but there was a new sense of purpose in the air. People worked together to rebuild what had been damaged, not just physically but emotionally. The loss of Marcus Doyle and so many others left a void, but their sacrifices inspired countless acts of kindness and unity. Neighbors helped neighbors, strangers became friends, and communities grew stronger than ever before. Emily Doyle found strength in her children. Though she missed Marcus deeply, she reminded herself every day of the love he had given them and the legacy he had left behind. She often took her kids to the park near their home, where a statue of Marcus now stood. It depicted him standing tall, one hand raised as if reaching for the stars. Her youngest child would sometimes place flowers at the base of the statue, saying, "Daddy saved everyone." Those words brought tears to Emily's eyes, but they also filled her with pride. Alan Carter returned to his research, inspired by the events that had unfolded. He continued studying the Echo Shard, hoping to unlock more of its secrets. Lyra Voss stayed on Earth for a time, working alongside him and sharing knowledge from her aquatic world. Together, they discovered fragments of ancient technology within the shard that could benefit both humans and aliens alike. Kale, too, remained involved, offering resources and support to help Earth advance its own capabilities. For the first time, humanity wasn't just learning from the galaxy, it was contributing to it. Rachel Monroe stepped back from active duty, choosing instead to mentor young leaders who would guide Earth into this new era of cooperation. She traveled across the globe, speaking at schools and universities about the importance of courage, teamwork, and trust. Her speeches always ended with the same message: we proved we can stand alongside the stars. Now let's make sure we never fall behind. The galaxy itself began to change. News of Earth's role in defeating the Devourer spread far and wide, earning humanity a seat at the Galactic Council, a body that governed relations between species. No longer dismissed as primitive or unimportant, Earth was now seen as an equal partner. Representatives from other worlds visited frequently, eager to learn about human culture and innovation. In return, Earth benefited from shared knowledge and technology, propelling its progress forward faster than anyone had thought possible. Statues of Marcus Doyle appeared not just on Earth, but on distant planets as well. His story became a symbol of hope and bravery, taught in classrooms across the galaxy. Children learned how one man's sacrifice had saved billions, proving that even the smallest actions could have the greatest impact. Emily attended ceremonies held in his honor, her heart swelling with both grief and gratitude. She knew Marcus would have been proud, not just of what he had done, but of how his actions had brought people together. As the years passed, Earth transformed. Cities grew taller, powered by clean energy technologies shared by alien allies. Space exploration flourished, with humans traveling farther than ever before. The Odyssey 1 asterisk, once a symbol of desperation, was preserved as a monument to the battle against the Devourer. Visitors from all over the galaxy came to see it, marveling at the ingenuity and determination of the crew who had risked everything. Yet, through all the changes, one thing remained constant: the memory of those who had given their lives. Every year, on the anniversary of the battle, people gathered to light candles and share stories of courage and sacrifice. It was a reminder that no matter how advanced they became, humanity's greatest strength lay in its ability to care for one another and for the universe beyond. The galaxy had once mocked Earth, calling it weak and insignificant. But now it looked to Earth not as a joke, but as a beacon of hope. Humanity had proven it could face the unknown, stand up to impossible odds, and emerge victorious. And though challenges still lay ahead, Earth faced them not alone, but as part of a united galaxy. Together, they would build a brighter future, one star at a time. The Devourer was gone, its massive swarm reduced to drifting fragments of inert nanobots that floated silently in the void of space. The galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief, but the victory felt hollow. Back on Earth, The weight of Marcus Doyle's sacrifice settled heavily over everyone who had fought and lived to see the end of the battle. Emily sat alone in the medical unit, her hands resting on the table in front of her, trembling slightly. She replayed his final words in her mind. "Tell Emily I love her." Her chest ached with grief, but she forced herself to stay strong for their children. They would grow up without their father, but they would also know what kind of man he was. A hero. In the control room, Alan Carter stared at the monitors, watching the remnants of the Devourer fade into nothingness. He felt a mix of pride and sorrow. Pride because humanity had risen to meet an impossible challenge, and sorrow because it had cost them so much. Lyra Voss stood beside him, her shimmering scales catching the dim light as she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Your people have done something remarkable," she said softly. "Marcus gave everything to save us all." Kale, the Zorathian ambassador, remained stoic as always, but there was a new respect in his eyes when he looked at the humans around him. For years, his people had dismissed Earth as weak and insignificant. Now, they owed their survival to its courage. "We underestimated you," he admitted gruffly, addressing Rachel Monroe. "That will not happen again." Rachel nodded, her expression unreadable. She had spent her entire career protecting Earth, but nothing could have prepared her for this. The loss of Marcus, and so many others, weighed heavily on her. Yet, she knew their sacrifice had not been in vain. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. As she looked around the room at the weary faces of her team, she felt a flicker of hope. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing alongside the stars. News of the victory spread quickly across Earth. People gathered in streets and squares, lighting candles in memory of those who had given their lives. Statues were erected in Marcus's honor, and schools began teaching his story as an example of bravery and selflessness. Emily attended the ceremonies quietly, holding her children close as they listened to speeches about their father's heroism. It didn't ease the pain of losing him, but it reminded her that his legacy would live on. The aliens, too, paid tribute to Marcus and the others who had fallen. Kel ordered his soldiers to salute Earth's flag during a formal ceremony, while Lyra's people sent glowing orbs of light into the sky as a symbol of gratitude. These gestures meant more than words could express, bridging the gap between Earth and its newfound allies. For the first time, humanity wasn't just tolerated, it was respected. As the days passed, life slowly began to return to normal. Factories reopened, farmers returned to their fields, and children went back to school. But the scars of the battle remained. Empty chairs at dinner tables served as reminders of the loved ones lost. In the skies above, the fleet of ships that had fought so bravely now drifted silently, their crews mourning their fallen comrades. Yet, amidst the grief, there was also hope. The galaxy had mocked Earth, dismissing it as primitive and unworthy. But now, humanity had proven its worth, not through power or technology, but through courage and unity. Earth was no longer an outsider. It was part of something greater. And though the road ahead would be long, the bonds forged in the fight against the Devourer would endure. For Emily, the pain of losing Marcus never fully faded, but as she watched her children grow, she found comfort in knowing that their father's sacrifice had made the universe a safer place. His name would echo through history, not just on Earth, but across the stars. And in that, she found a measure of peace. Marcus pushed the drone deeper into the heart of the Devourer, his hand steady despite the chaos around him. The swarm attacked relentlessly, nanobots swarming the small craft like a cloud of locusts. Alarms blared inside the cockpit as systems flickered and failed, but Marcus refused to give up. "Stay with me," he muttered, guiding the drone through narrow gaps in the swirling mass. Back in the control room, Alan Carter watched the monitors intently, his brow furrowed with tension. Every second felt like an eternity. "Marcus, you're almost there," Alan said over the comms, his voice tight with urgency. On the screen, a faint outline of the swarm's core appeared, a pulsating sphere of energy at the center of the chaos. It was the source of the Devourer's power, the key to stopping it. But reaching it would require precision and luck. Two things in short supply. Rachel Monroe paced behind Ellen, her fists clenched as she listened to Marcus's strained breathing over the comms. She wanted to tell him to turn back, to abandon the mission and save himself, but she knew it wasn't an option. If they didn't shut down the Devourer now, Earth, and countless other worlds, would be lost. Instead, she forced herself to stay silent, trusting Marcus to do what needed to be done. The fleet fought desperately to hold the swarm at bay, their weapons blazing against the endless tide of nanobots. Kale led his Zorathian forces with brutal efficiency, while Lyra's aquatic drones darted through the chaos, targeting weak points in the swarm structure. Together, they created a fragile corridor for Marcus to pass through, but the cost was high. Ships exploded in bursts of light, their crews lost in an instant. Rachel flinched with each loss, her heart heavy with grief, but she reminded herself why they were fighting. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. It was about survival. Inside the drone, Marcus worked quickly, his fingers flying over the controls as he prepared to upload the reprogramming sequence. The fragmented consciousnesses Alan had discovered earlier began to communicate, their voices faint but clear. "Help us," they whispered, their tones filled with desperation. "We never meant for this to happen." Marcus hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'm here to fix it," he said softly, though he knew they couldn't hear him. As the upload began, the swarm reacted violently. The nanobots surged toward the drone, overwhelming its defenses. Warning lights flashed red, and the ship shuddered violently. "Marcus, get out of there," Rachel shouted, her voice cracking with emotion. But Marcus ignored her, his focus unwavering. He had come too far to turn back now. Back on Earth, Emily Doyle sat alone in the medical unit, her hands trembling as she listened to the comms. She could hear the strain in Marcus's voice, the fear in Rachel's commands. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't make a sound. She had always known Marcus was brave, but now she realized just how much he was willing to sacrifice. For her, for their children, for everyone. Finally, the upload completed. The swarm's core pulsed once, then began to collapse inward. On the monitors, Alan watched as the Devourer's structure unraveled, the nanobots losing cohesion and falling apart. "It's working," he exclaimed, his voice filled with relief. But the victory was bittersweet. Marcus's escape route was blocked, the swarm collapsing around him. "Tell Emily I love her," Marcus said over the comms, his voice calm but tinged with sadness. Rachel closed her eyes, unable to respond. In the medical unit, Emily let out a quiet sob, clutching her hands to her chest. She had known deep down that this might happen, but hearing his final words broke her heart. As the Devourer disintegrated, the galaxy fell silent. The threat was gone, but the cost had been high. Marcus's bravery would not be forgotten. His sacrifice had saved billions, proving once and for all that humanity was capable of standing alongside the stars. And though the galaxy had once mocked Earth, it now owed its survival to the courage of one man. The battle raged on, fierce and unrelenting. The Devourer's swarm seemed endless, its nanobots multiplying faster than the fleet could destroy them. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as ships fired everything they had at the advancing horde. Marcus Doyle gripped the controls of Odyssey 1 *, his knuckles white as he maneuvered the flagship through waves of destruction. The ship shuddered with each impact, sparks flying from consoles as systems struggled to keep up. "Hold together," he muttered under his breath, not sure if he was talking to the ship or himself. Rachel Monroe stood nearby, issuing commands over the comms. Her voice remained steady, but her eyes betrayed her worry. The splinter groups breaking off from the main swarm were relentless, slipping past the fleet's defenses and heading straight for Earth. "Focus fire on the outliers," she shouted. "We can't let them reach the planet." The crew worked tirelessly, their faces pale but determined. They knew what was at stake. If even a small part of the swarm made it to Earth, the consequences would be catastrophic. On Earth, Emily Doyle watched the news with growing dread. Reports showed flashes of light in the night sky, signs of the battle raging above. People huddled indoors, some praying, others crying, as they waited for news. Emily tried to stay strong for the volunteers around her, but her mind kept drifting to Marcus. She couldn't shake the image of him out there, fighting against something so vast and unstoppable. Still, she forced herself to focus, organizing medical supplies and preparing for the worst. If survivors returned, they would need care, and she would be ready. Amid the chaos, Alan Carter made a startling discovery. While analyzing data from the Echo Shard, he noticed something unusual. Buried deep within the swarm's structure were faint traces of intelligence, not the cold logic of machines, but fragmented consciousnesses. These were remnants of the ancient civilization that had created the Devourer. It wasn't always like this, Alan said aloud, his voice trembling with realization. The Devourer was meant to terraform planets, not destroy them. Something went wrong. It corrupted the programming. Kale overheard Alan's words and approached him, his expression unreadable. "If what you're saying is true," the Zorathian ambassador said slowly, "then there may still be a way to stop it." Lyra Voss joined them, her shimmering scales catching the dim light of the control room. "You think we can reprogram it?" she asked, skepticism in her voice. Alan nodded. "It's risky, but it might be our only chance. If we can reach its core and upload new instructions, we might be able to shut it down." The idea was met with silence. Everyone knew how dangerous it would be to venture into the heart of the swarm. But Marcus stepped forward, his face set with determination. "I'll do it," he said firmly. "I know the systems better than anyone. If someone has to go in, it should be me." Rachel opened her mouth to protest, but Marcus cut her off. "We don't have time to argue. This is the best shot we've got." Reluctantly, the team agreed. Marcus prepared a small drone equipped with the necessary tools to interface with the swarm's core. As he climbed into the cockpit, Emily's voice came over the comms. "Marcus," she said softly, her tone filled with emotion, "come back to us." He hesitated for a moment, then replied, "I'll do my best." With the fleet holding the swarm at bay, Marcus launched the drone toward the Devourer's center. The journey was harrowing, the swarm attacking relentlessly as he navigated closer to its nucleus. Inside the control room, Alan monitored Marcus' progress, his hand shaking as he guided him through the swarm's defenses. Kale and Lyra coordinated with their forces, doing everything they could to protect the mission. For the first time, humanity and aliens worked seamlessly together, united by a common purpose. The galaxy had mocked Earth, but now it relied on its ingenuity and bravery. Whether Marcus succeeded or failed, one thing was certain. Earth had proven it could stand alongside the stars. The Devourer arrived faster than anyone expected. At first it was just a faint shadow on the edge of the solar system, a dark smudge against the stars. But as it moved closer, its true nature became clear. It wasn't a single entity but a massive swarm, a swirling cloud of nanobots that consumed everything in its path. Planets, asteroids, even sunlight seemed to vanish as the swarm advanced, leaving only emptiness behind. The sight sent chills through everyone watching, whether from Earth or aboard the fleet. Marcus Doyle stared at the monitors in the cockpit of Odyssey 1 *, his jaw clenched. The swarm was enormous, far bigger than any simulation they had run. "This is really happening," he muttered, more to himself than to Rachel Monroe, who stood nearby. She didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the screens as the Devourer shifted course, drawn by the decoy signal. For now, the plan was working. The swarm was heading toward Earth's solar system instead of the galactic core. But the relief was short-lived. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. On Earth, panic began to spread. News outlets showed live footage of the Devourer's approach, and people rushed to prepare for the worst. Some packed their belongings and fled to rural areas, hoping to find safety. Others stayed put, unwilling to leave their homes. Emily Doyle worked tirelessly to keep the medical units organized, her hands steady despite the fear gnawing at her heart. She tried not to think about Marcus, focusing instead on the task at hand. Around her, volunteers did their best to stay calm, though the tension in the air was almost unbearable. In the control room, Alan Carter monitored the swarm's movements closely. Lyra Voss stood beside him, her expression grave. "It's adapting," she said softly, pointing to the data on the screens. The devourer wasn't just following the decoy signal, it was learning, adjusting its path with terrifying efficiency. Kale paced nearby, his armored boots clicking against the floor. "We need to act quickly," he growled. "If it reaches Earth, there will be no stopping it." Rachel gave the order for the fleet to move into position. The ships formed a defensive perimeter around Earth, ready to intercept the swarm if it bypassed the decoy. Marcus piloted Odyssey 1 with precision, guiding the flagship to the front lines. His hands trembled slightly on the controls, but his focus never wavered. "Stay sharp," he told the crew over the comms. "We've got one shot at this." As the devourer entered the solar system, the decoy signal reached its peak strength. The swarm paused for a moment, as if deciding what to do next. Then, with a sudden surge, it accelerated toward the signal source. The plan was working, but barely. The swarm was so vast that parts of it began to split off, moving unpredictably. Some fragments headed straight for Earth, while others veered toward the fleet. Rachel barked orders, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Target the splinter groups. We can't let them reach the planet." The ships opened fire, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space. Explosions erupted as the fleet fought to hold the line, but the devourer kept coming. Each destroyed fragment was quickly replaced by more nanobots, endlessly replicating themselves. Back on Earth, Emily watched the battle unfold on the news, her heart pounding. She wanted to believe Marcus would come back to her, but the odds felt overwhelming. Children cried, and elders prayed, as humanity faced the greatest threat it had ever known. Yet, amidst the fear, there was also courage. People helped each other, sharing food and shelter, refusing to give up hope. Kale joined the fight, leading his Zorathian forces into the fray. Lyra's aquatic drones dove into the swarm, attempting to disrupt its structure. Together, humans and aliens fought side by side, united by a common goal. For the first time, Earth wasn't alone. They were part of something larger, a shared struggle for survival. The galaxy had mocked Earth, calling it weak and insignificant. But now, humanity proved its worth. The fight was far from over, but one thing was clear. Earth wouldn't go down without a fight. And in that moment, the galaxy began to see Earth, not as a joke, but as an ally. The day of activation arrived, and Earth transformed into a hive of activity. Factories roared to life, their machines working non-stop to produce the final pieces of equipment needed for the mission. Engineers double-checked every wire, every circuit, ensuring nothing would fail when the decoy signal went live. In space, the fleet of retrofitted spacecraft stood ready, their crews tense but determined. The Odyssey 1 the flagship vessel, glowed faintly under the sunlight as it orbited above Earth, waiting for its moment. Marcus Doyle sat in the cockpit of Odyssey 1 his hands gripping the controls. He had spent weeks preparing for this, modifying engines, installing new systems, and making sure everything worked perfectly. Now, as he stared out at the vast emptiness of space, he felt a mix of fear and pride. Fear because he knew the risks. They were luring the devourer straight toward them. Pride because he was part of something bigger than himself, something that could save billions of lives. Beside him, Rachel Monroe reviewed the mission plan one last time, her sharp eyes scanning the screens for any sign of trouble. On Earth, Emily Doyle helped organize the volunteers who had gathered to support the mission. She moved from station to station, checking supplies and offering words of encouragement. Her heart ached with worry for Marcus, but she pushed those feelings aside. There was too much to do, too many people counting on her. Around her, the mood was a strange blend of hope and tension. Some volunteers sang songs to lift spirits, while others worked in silence, lost in thought. Posters with messages like, "We're not alone," and "Together we stand" hung on walls, reminders of humanity's newfound unity. In the control room, Alan Carter monitored the decoy signal as it powered up. Lyra Voss stood beside him, her graceful movements belying the seriousness of the moment. Together, they adjusted the shard settings, fine-tuning the transmission to mimic the energy signatures the Devourer sought. Kale paced nearby, his armored boots clicking against the floor. Though he rarely showed emotion, Alan noticed the slight furrow in the Zorethian's brow, a sign that even he was feeling the pressure. Finally, the countdown reached its final seconds. Everyone held their breath as the signal activated. A burst of energy shot out into space, invisible to the naked eye, but powerful enough to reach across light years. For a moment, there was silence. Then the monitors lit up with data. The Devourer had detected the signal. It was heading toward Earth. Cheers erupted in the control room, but they were short-lived. The reality of what was coming quickly set in. The Devourer was fast, faster than anyone had anticipated. Within hours, it would enter the solar system. Rachel gave the order for the fleet to move into position, ready to face the swarm if it bypassed the decoy. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls, his knuckles white. "Here we go," he muttered under his breath. Back on Earth, people watched the skies with a mixture of awe and dread. News reports streamed live updates, showing images of the fleet in orbit and the scientists in the control room. Families gathered around televisions, holding each other close. Some prayed, others cried, but all shared the same hope that humanity's gamble would pay off. As the Devourer drew closer, the aliens' respect for Earth grew. Kale admitted to Alan that he had misjudged humanity. "You fight not just for yourselves," he said, "but for others. That is rare." Lyra nodded in agreement, her voice soft but sincere. "Your courage will be remembered, no matter what happens." The galaxy had always mocked Earth, dismissing it as weak and insignificant. But now, humanity stood tall, ready to face a threat that terrified even the most advanced civilizations. The stakes were impossibly high, but the resolve of the people, human and alien alike, was unshakable. As the first signs of the Devourer appeared on the horizon, Earth braced itself for the fight of its life. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. The plan was set, but the weight of it pressed heavily on everyone involved. Earth's role in the mission was clear. Act as bait. The decoy signal would lure the Devourer toward the solar system, buying time for other species to evacuate or fortify their defenses. It was a dangerous strategy, one that put humanity at great risk. Yet, despite the odds, people from all walks of life stepped forward to help. Ordinary citizens volunteered to assist in any way they could, driven by a sense of duty and hope. Marcus Doyle worked tirelessly in the hangar, his hands covered in grease as he fine-tuned the last of the retrofitted satellites. Each piece of equipment had been modified to amplify the decoy signal, ensuring it would be strong enough to catch the Devourer's attention. His wife, Emily, stayed close, organizing medical teams and coordinating supplies. Though she worried about Marcus's safety, she knew there was no stopping him. He had always been a man of action, and now, with the fate of the galaxy on the line, he wasn't about to sit back. Rachel Monroe took charge of organizing Earth's defense efforts. She divided her time between overseeing military operations and keeping an eye on the alien visitors. Trust didn't come easily to her, especially when it came to Kale and his Zorethian soldiers. Their cold efficiency unnerved her, though she couldn't deny their competence. Lyra's group, on the other hand, seemed more cooperative, but Rachel still kept her guard up. "We're doing this for Earth," she reminded herself whenever doubt crept in. "Not for them." Alan Carter spent long hours in the control room, monitoring the progress of the decoy signal. He worked closely with Lyra, whose knowledge of advanced technology proved invaluable. Together, they calibrated the shard to enhance the transmission, making sure it mimicked the energy signatures the Devourer sought. The process was painstaking, but Alan refused to give up. Every adjustment brought them closer to success or failure. As the days passed, news of the mission spread across Earth. People rallied together, setting aside differences to support the cause. Factories that once produced cars and appliances now churned out components for the decoy system. Farmers donated food to feed the workers, while teachers and students helped assemble equipment. Even children pitched in, writing messages of encouragement for the team. Posters with slogans like "Earth Stands Strong" appeared in windows and on street corners, symbols of unity in the face of danger. Despite the growing sense of purpose, fear lingered beneath the surface. Many wondered if the plan would work, or if Earth was being used as a sacrificial pawn. Some accused the aliens of manipulating humanity into taking the fall, while others argued that Earth had no choice but to try. Arguments broke out in homes and public spaces, but even the skeptics couldn't ignore the urgency of the situation. Cale watched the humans with a mix of curiosity and respect. He had always seen them as primitive, but their resilience surprised him. They fight not just for themselves, he admitted to Alan during a rare moment of calm, but for others. That takes courage. Alan nodded, though he knew the road ahead would test that courage to its limits. Finally, the preparations were complete. The decoy signal was ready to be activated, and the fleet of retrofitted spacecraft stood prepared to engage the Devourer if necessary. Marcus climbed into the cockpit of Odyssey 1 *, the flagship vessel chosen to lead the mission. Emily hugged him tightly before he boarded, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Come back to us." He forced a smile, promising he would do everything he could to return. Rachel gave a final briefing to the crew, her tone firm but filled with quiet determination. "This isn't just about Earth," she said. "It's about proving we can stand alongside the rest of the galaxy. We've been laughed at, mocked, and underestimated, but today we show them what we're made of." As the countdown began, Alan stood beside Lyra, watching the monitors intently. The galaxy had always treated Earth as insignificant, but now humanity was stepping up to face a threat that terrified even the most advanced civilizations. The moment of truth was near, and whether they succeeded or failed, Earth would never be seen the same way again. The decoded message from the Echo Shard painted a terrifying picture. The Devourer was not just a swarm of nanobots, it was a relentless force that consumed everything in its path, turning planets into lifeless wastelands. Dr. Alan Carter stared at the data on the screen, his mind racing. He had always dreamed of making contact with alien life, but this was far beyond anything he could have imagined. The galaxy's survival depended on stopping the Devourer, and somehow, Earth was now at the center of the plan. Cale, the Zorathian ambassador, confirmed what the Shard had revealed. His people had encountered the Devourer centuries ago. "It came without warning," Cale explained, his voice heavy with memories of loss. "We fought it, but it was too powerful. Billions died. Entire worlds were erased." He paused, his sharp eyes meeting Alan's. "If it reaches the core systems, there will be no stopping it." Lyra Voss added her own account, her voice quieter but filled with urgency. Her aquatic homeworld had narrowly escaped the Devourer's path by hiding beneath layers of oceanic cover. "It doesn't discriminate," she said. "It consumes all matter, rock, metal, water, even living beings. Nothing can survive its hunger." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. For the first time, the aliens looked to the humans not with disdain but with hope. Rachel Monroe listened carefully, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She didn't trust the aliens completely, but she understood the stakes. If the Devourer reached Earth, humanity would face extinction. But if they acted quickly, they might have a chance to slow it down, or even stop it, "What do we need to do?" she asked, breaking the silence. Her tone was firm, leaving no room for doubt about her determination. Alan stepped forward, pointing to a map of the galaxy displayed on the wall. "The shard signal suggests the devourer is heading toward the galactic core. If we can create a decoy signal strong enough, we might be able to lure it away from populated areas." His idea was risky, but it was the best option they had. The aliens exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Finally, Kale nodded. "It's worth trying," he said, "but it will require resources and sacrifices." The next few days were a blur of activity. Earth scientists worked side by side with the alien teams, combining their knowledge to design the decoy signal. Alan collaborated closely with Lyra, whose expertise in aquatic technology proved invaluable. Together, they developed a plan to amplify Earth's transmission using the shard as a conduit. Meanwhile, Rachel oversaw the logistical challenges, ensuring that every piece of equipment was ready for deployment. Marcus Doyle played a key role in preparing Earth's contribution to the plan. A former soldier turned mechanic, Marcus had a knack for fixing things under pressure. He spent hours retrofitting old satellites and spacecraft, turning them into tools capable of broadcasting the decoy signal. His wife, Emily, supported him in her own way, organizing medical supplies and training volunteers to handle emergencies. Despite the chaos around them, they found strength in each other, determined to protect their family and their planet. As the team worked, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Kettle's soldiers often clashed with Earth's military personnel, their rigid discipline clashing with human adaptability. Lyra's team, though more cooperative, still struggled to communicate effectively with their human counterparts. Misunderstandings flared up regularly, but Alan and Rachel did their best to keep everyone focused on the mission. "We don't have time for this," Rachel snapped during one heated argument. "If we can't work together, we're all dead." Despite the challenges, progress was made. The decoy signal grew stronger with each test, and the aliens began to see Earth's ingenuity in a new light. Kale admitted privately to Alan that he had underestimated humanity. "You may lack our technology," he said grudgingly, "but you make up for it with determination." Finally, the day came when the plan was ready. The decoy signal would be broadcast from Earth, drawing the devourer's attention away from the galactic core. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. As the team gathered to finalize the preparations, Alan looked around the room at the faces of his colleagues, human and alien alike. They were an unlikely alliance, brought together by necessity, but united by a shared goal. The galaxy had mocked Earth for so long, dismissing it as insignificant. Now, humanity stood ready to prove its worth, not just for itself, but for every living being in the stars. The countdown to activation began, and with it, the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The arrival of the alien ships changed everything. Earth, once ignored and dismissed, suddenly became a focal point for the galaxy's attention. Kale, the Zorathian ambassador, stood tall and imposing in his sleek armor, his voice deep and commanding. Lyra Voss, on the other hand, moved with quiet grace, her shimmering scales catching the light as she spoke in smooth, melodic tones. Both were leaders among their people, but neither hid their skepticism about working with humans. To them, Earth was still a primitive world, unworthy of respect. Yet they couldn't deny the importance of the Echo Shard and the warning it carried. Dr. Alan Carter tried to remain calm as he explained the team's findings to the visitors. He pointed to the data displayed on the screens, showing the patterns and signals extracted from the shard. "This isn't just a random artifact," he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "It's a message, a warning about something called the Devourer." Kel's expression hardened at the mention of the name, while Lyra exchanged a worried glance with her assistant. Alan continued, "If we don't act now, it could mean disaster for everyone." Rachel Monroe stood nearby, her arms crossed and her eyes sharp. She didn't trust these aliens, no matter how polite they seemed. Her instincts told her they had their own agendas, and she wasn't about to let them take advantage of Earth's vulnerability. "What do you suggest we do?" she asked, directing her question to Kale. The Zorathian hesitated before answering. "Our first priority is to confirm your findings," he said. "If the Devourer truly exists, then time is not on our side." Lyra stepped forward, her tone softer but equally serious. "We must work together, despite our differences. The survival of countless species depends on it." Her words carried weight, and for a moment, the room fell silent. Even Rachel couldn't argue with that. Reluctantly, she nodded, though her hand stayed close to her weapon. As the days passed, tensions between the humans and their alien guests grew. Kel's people were disciplined and efficient, but their cold demeanor made it hard for the Earth team to connect with them. Lyra's group, though more approachable, seemed distant, as if they viewed humans as children playing at being adults. Alan did his best to bridge the gap, spending hours explaining Earth's technology and learning about theirs. He found Lyra particularly fascinating. Her knowledge of aquatic engineering offered new insights into the shard's design, but even she couldn't hide her occasional frustration with humanity's limitations. Meanwhile, the rest of the world watched nervously. News of the alien visitors spread quickly, sparking both fear and curiosity. Some saw the aliens as saviors, while others believed they were invaders waiting for the right moment to strike. Protests erupted in cities around the globe, with people demanding answers from their leaders. In response, governments worked overtime to reassure the public, though many struggled to understand the situation themselves. Back at the research facility, progress was slow but steady. With the combined efforts of human and alien scientists, they managed to decode more of the shard's message. It revealed that the Devourer was not a natural phenomenon but a creation, an ancient experiment gone horribly wrong. Designed to terraform barren planets, it had somehow broken free of its programming and begun consuming everything in its path. The thought of facing such a force filled even the bravest among them with dread. Marcus Doyle, a mechanic-turned-volunteer, spent long hours helping retrofit Earth's outdated spacecraft for the coming battle. His wife, Emily, joined a medical unit preparing for the worst. Together, they represented the spirit of humanity, ordinary people stepping up in extraordinary times. Marcus often joked that he felt like a character in one of those old sci-fi movies, but deep down, he knew this was real. Every bolt he tightened, every wire he connected, brought them one step closer to either victory or doom. Despite the challenges, a fragile alliance began to form. Kale and Lyra started treating the humans less like inferiors and more like partners, though their pride still showed through. Alan noticed the change during late-night discussions, where ideas flowed freely across cultural boundaries. Rachel remained cautious, always keeping an eye on the aliens' movements, but even she admitted that cooperation might be their only chance. As the pieces of the puzzle came together, one thing became clear. Earth was no longer alone in the universe, but neither was it safe. The galaxy had mocked them for so long, yet now it looked to them for help. Whether humanity was ready or not, the fate of billions rested in their hands. The galaxy had always laughed at Earth. To the advanced civilizations among the stars, humanity was nothing more than a curious little species living on a small blue planet. They saw Earth as backward and unimportant, like a child who didn't understand the rules of a grown-up game. For years, humans tried to reach out to these alien worlds, sending messages into space, hoping for a reply. But instead of answers, they got silence, or worse, mockery. The aliens thought Earth's attempts were amusing, like watching ants try to climb a mountain. But one day, everything changed. A strange object fell from the sky and crashed in the middle of a desert in Arizona. It wasn't just any piece of space junk. It was an alien artifact, glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Scientists quickly named it the Echo Shard because it seemed to hum softly, almost as if it were alive. News of the discovery spread fast, and soon, teams of researchers gathered around it, eager to unlock its secrets. Among them was Dr. Alan Carter, a quiet but brilliant astrophysicist who had spent most of his life studying the stars. He'd always believed there was more to the universe than what met the eye. And now, standing before the shard, he felt like he might finally be proven right. The military also took notice. Lieutenant Rachel Monroe, a no-nonsense officer with sharp instincts, was sent to oversee security. She didn't trust the situation. Not the shard, not the scientists, and certainly not whatever aliens might have sent it. Her job was simple: protect Earth's interests, no matter what. As she watched Alan and his team examine the artifact, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. There was something about the shard that made her skin crawl, like it was watching them back. Days turned into weeks as the team worked tirelessly to decode the shard's mysterious signals. At first, it seemed impossible. The data was unlike anything they'd ever seen, complex patterns of light and sound that defied explanation. But slowly, Alan began to make progress. With the help of his assistant, a young programmer named Mia Torres, he managed to extract fragments of information. What they found was chilling. A warning. Something big was coming, something dangerous. The shard spoke of a force called the Devourer, a cosmic entity that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing behind but emptiness. Alan shared his findings with Rachel, who listened intently despite her usual skepticism. "If this is real," she said, crossing her arms, "then we're in serious trouble." Alan nodded. He knew she was right. If the Devourer was heading toward the Milky Way, it wouldn't just threaten Earth. It would destroy every living thing in its path. Word of the discovery eventually reached the rest of the galaxy. Alien ships began appearing in Earth's orbit, their intentions unclear. Some came to investigate, others to mock, but all were curious about the shard. Among the visitors were Kale, a tall, armored ambassador from the Zorathian Empire, and Lyra Voss, a graceful diplomat from the water-covered planet of Aquaria. Both were powerful figures in their own right, yet neither hid their disdain for humanity. They saw Earth as weak and unworthy of attention, except for one thing: the shard. When Kel confirmed that his people had encountered the Devourer before, fear rippled through the room. According to him, the Zorathians barely escaped with their lives, losing countless planets in the process. Now, the swarm was moving closer to the galaxy's core, where billions of beings lived. If it reached them, there would be no stopping it. For the first time, Earth found itself at the center of galactic events, not as a joke, but as a potential savior. Alan looked at the shard, its soft glow reflecting in his glasses. He realized that humanity's moment had arrived. Whether they liked it or not, Earth was now part of something much bigger than itself. And if they failed, the galaxy would pay the price.